All right, so now it's recording, and we'll go to a cleaner slide. All right, so hopefully you've got your 3 forms down. They're from that first sheet that I gave you. If you want to pull it out of your notebook, that's fine. I'm going to write our 3 forms up here. You need to know this is called slope-intercept form. This is called point-slope form. And then you have standard or general form. They're interchangeable. I forgot what I even called it, standard form. So it's AX plus BY equals C. What's important is these have to all be what we call integers. That means there's no fractions. And the lead coefficient needs to be positive. Lead coefficient meaning the A, all right, the one in the front. There are different books and videos and classes that do standard or general form different ways, and if you run into a teacher that does that one differently, just abide by what they're doing, okay? There's different, rules about it. But these are set in stone, okay? Slope-intercept and point-slope. And we're going to start off. What I did was I copied 4, 5, and 6 from a worksheet that you have at your disposal, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so in class one day, I believe I did 1, 2, and 3 for you really, really well. And that's why I pulled up 4, 5, and 6. This is off an old worksheet, okay? All the rest of these problems are brand new, so it gives you even more to practice. After class, sometime this afternoon, when I post the assignment that will say test on, February 6th, I will also then just take time to load blank worksheets on the attachments, and you can print those at will if you want to practice and then check what you got in class on your notebook, okay? And let's try to hold our questions so that we can go smoothly through the review. So often, I hope by February you found that when you raise your hand to ask a question, I'm certainly not opposed to questions, but you can ask me about 100 questions on one problem, that if I keep on moving, you will get the body of information in a much better way, okay? Okay. Uh-huh. Yeah. If you just walk out, Susan, I assume you're going to the bathroom. Okay. All right. Yana, do you have a question before we start?
Yeah, so for the standard form, so all of them have to be integers, and the delta math practice for the test, is that also all we would need to know for the test?
You'll have way more than you need to know for the test. If you know this review packet, and I'll post a blank one of these also, if you could do this without any halting, listen girls, this is a good study skill forever in mathematics. If you get this whole worksheet in a good amount of time without any questions whatsoever, then you're ready to go for the test. If you get stuck on something on the review sheet, that means I better go back and pull out my elimination, delta math, and worksheet and practice until I'm good at it. So did y'all see a review sheet just flags for you things you need to study more intently, and that'll be up to you. Some people won't need to study near as much as others, and some people will have to study a lot. Some people won't have to study a lot, but they will anyway because you're Marymount girls and you'll do everything that I post. It is definitely not necessary. It depends on where you are. So let me reiterate this. The reason I'm reposting everything is it could be that student A really feels weak on elimination and they want to do delta math and the elimination worksheet over again. And I don't want you going to try to find your own because that can waste your time and you might not find something good, okay, or familiar. Will y'all let Grazia? So I think y'all see what I mean, so let's move on. All right, let's do this. I'm going to work a few problems, and not until I work a few will I pause for questions. I'm the type that would forget my question, so I always say to you, write it down, okay? Let me tell you, there's not going to be any reason, I know this sounds weird, be saying this because I'm like super nice and bend over backwards to like, I wish I could be mean. But I really don't. But anyway, they tend to ask so many questions, we don't get the ball rolling, and so that's why I'm saying that, okay? So I will answer your question. I think most of y'all would agree by the time I finally get there, you're like, oh, you answered my question. So I'll pause and go, are there any questions at that moment? You can then raise your hand, okay? All right, so they may not be in boxes on the test. I haven't decided, but this is how to go from one form to the other given certain information. So I'm on number 4. All right, on number 4, I don't need to draw the boxes, actually. Y'all, the boxes are not anything magic. Be prepared. If I give you one thing, you can go to the other thing. So on number 4, I gave you point slope form. Okay? So if I do it in boxes and ask for all of them, I might would go graph that right away. You don't have to, but I might would go over to the graph. I'm going to go slowly enough where you can keep up. Raise your hand if you know what point is being used here. Sarah?
It's -2, 1.
Okay, follow your variable. She can tell that this is point slope form. Somebody must have gone x minus x and y minus y. So pulling them back out, you always change your signs. -2, 1. And then our slope is up 1 over 4. So I'm going to go up. I'm going to go up 1 and over 1, 2, 3, 4. Obviously, you won't draw those little curly Q things. I was showing you how I was counting with my pen. And then draw the line. Okay? Now, how can I get to slope-intercept form? I'm going to distribute. So now in purple, I'm doing slope-intercept form, or that's blue. Y minus 1, this is going to be 1/4 x plus 2/4, which is 1/2. Then I'm going to add 1. So I have y is equal to 1/4 x, and I need to figure out what 1/2 plus 1 is. You will have fractions. I don't avoid those. You're in 9th grade. I'm going to change the 1 into 2 over 2. So that gives me y equals 1/4 x plus 3/2. So that goes squeezed into slope-intercept form. Now let's see, suppose that you haven't graphed yet. Suppose you decided on your paper to go straight from point slope to slope-intercept and say now you're ready to graph. What would happen to that person? That person would go to the y-intercept of 3/2, which is 1 1/2. And then they would go up 1 and over 4. And they would have the same exact equation, okay? You ought, no matter where you stop and graph it from, it's all going to be the same. Now let me undo that for a minute and go a little more slowly in a bigger fashion. Suppose that you run into one you're trying to graph that's like this. The y-intercept is 3/2, which is 1 1/2. And how in the world am I going to go up 1 and over 4? If I'm at 1 1/2, I go up 1 and land at 2 1/2. And then I go over 1, 2, 3, 4, and draw my line, which is the exact same as that line. You pick where you want to draw your line from if you're asked. I'm not answering any questions. Please, the only time you should raise your hand right now is if I've made a mistake and you need to stop me, okay? Because I don't need to go forward with like an error. Write your question down. Do not forget it, okay? All right, now I want to go back to this. Suppose you're on a graph and you don't have room to go up 1 and over 4, okay? You could also go down 1 and back 4, couldn't you?
Yeah.
What if you go down 1 and back 4? What's a negative over a negative? A positive. And so this person could have also gone down 1 and over 1, 2, 3, 4, and they would have the same line. It's not unique. You can graph it from wherever you want to. Now I just did a lot of stuff that I'm going to erase and talk about how I would work this problem. I don't need to talk a whole lot about all the different ways to work a problem. There's a lot of girls in here making their own decisions. They're doing things in their head that they know are right. They're graphing whenever they want to. If you're making those decisions and you're getting it right, I'm not messing with that. You can do that. Some people are solving equations and doing things a lot faster than I do in class. So starting over on number 4, I gave you point slope form. Point slope form is y minus y equals m times x minus x. Okay? So I think it was Sarah that gave me the point. She could tell that somebody must have said x minus negative 2 and y minus 1. So your point is negative 2, 1. And then you go up 1 and over 4 and draw your line, which you've probably already done. Then if I want to get it into y-intercept form, slope-intercept form, I'm going to distribute. Y minus 1 equals 1/4 x plus 1/2, which is 2/4. I'm going to add 1, and I got a common denominator. Or if you want to, you could call that 1/2. I don't care. Or you could get a common denominator and call it 3/2. You can call it 1.5. I don't care. Now for standard form. Standard form, you need your x's and y's all on the same side. Okay? So let's go back to this one. This is 1/4 x plus 3/2. Let me show you a nice thing that I like to do. I've told it to you before. I don't know if it's sunk in. I don't like fractions, neither do you. I want to get rid of them as soon as I can. There's a way almost all the time on equations to get rid of a fraction really fast, okay? If I don't get rid of the fraction, then I have to add common denominators and blah, blah, blah. So what I like to do is just get rid of it all with the common denominator. By the way, I told my other class this morning that I don't know if any of y'all live around Herald Square. They actually have seesaws, big, huge metal seesaws down right now that you could just get on with a friend and seesaw.
By the river?
It's close to Macy's.
Or
No, it's not the ones by the river. They're big, huge metal ones that they just installed. They're on the street. All right. Anyway, the reason I was thinking about seesaw is if I do something to one side of the equation, I need to do something. I'm not answering questions. If I do something to one side of the equation, I have to do it to the other side of the equation, like a seesaw. Okay. So, girls, what's the common denominator here? Grazia? No, what's the common denominator, Maria? 4. I'm going to make this a seesaw. I'm going to multiply this side by 4, and I'm going to multiply this side by 4. And it's a quick fix. That gives me 4y equals, distribute, what's 1/4 times 4? 1. So you can say 1x or just x. And what's 3/2 times 4? 2 goes into 4 2 times, so that gives me 6. For standard form, you're following a pattern. You want x and y on the same side. There are some people that would move this differently from me, and I'm okay with that. To be consistent, I'm going to subtract x from both sides. I want the x in the front, negative x plus 4y equals 6. But what did I say you have to start with? A positive. So I'm going to seesaw again. I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 1. That gives me x minus 4y equals negative 6. And that's in standard form. Questions? Rebecca?
Since I solved the point slope form to get the slope intercept form, I got for graphing, then it would be 3/2. Is that okay?
Yeah, I did that.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Right, I did it both ways, and then I erased it. But yeah, I came in. You may have been doing something else when I did it. I said if you had already gotten this, which is kind of lost in the shuffle now, if you'd already gotten that, then you would go to 1.5 or 3/2, and then you would go up 1 and over 4. I don't know if you remember us talking about that, because I talked about how do you go up.
Okay, I
Okay?
was just thinking the second
So to make it clear in the boxes, here's your graph. This is in box number 1. In box number 2, here's the green, slope-intercept form. I'll rewrite it. In box number 2, y equals 1/4 x plus 3/2. That's box number 2. Box number 3 is filled in. Box number 4 is down here in black. Okay? All right, other questions? Yana?
So to solve for the standard form, you're going to multiply like the slope intercept? Or how did you exactly solve for the standard form?
I think it totally depends on what you're given. That's why I want to keep doing examples. It depends on what you're given. Yana, I would say that the most logical place to get to standard form is from slope-intercept form, but I was given point-slope form. So I had to do something to it to get back to standard, but that doesn't matter to me how you get to standard form. I think you've got to do what makes sense to you. But if you always go from slope-intercept to standard, that's fine. Okay? All right, let's go to number 2. Oh, Susan?
Yeah, so for point slope form, the formula is y minus 1, not y minus y1 equals n x minus x1. For the 1, like we don't have 2 x's and 2 y's when we're given the points. So which x and y do you plug into this?
If you're given 1 point, fill in the point I gave you.
I just
If you're given 10 points, you just pick one.
okay.
You could pick a different one from Evelyn and Eliza.
Okay.
It wouldn't matter.
I can just pick.
So that's why it says x sub 1, y sub 1. That means put in one of your points.
Okay.
Okay? All right? Great question. Everybody pause. Don't write anything down. Okay? Don't write anything down. Or maybe we'll come to it. I may get you to just wait. Hang on. And then you will write something down. Okay. Supposing on the test, so don't write this down. Suppose on the test that I gave you 2 points, like 3, -2, and 4, 5. Okay? And I said write the equation of the line. And I didn't even tell you what form to use. I would use point slope form, but I didn't give you the slope. How are you going to find the slope? Sarah?
I think it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1.
All right, so it doesn't matter which point you start with, but as long as I started with the 5 minus -2, I'm going to have to go back to 4 minus 3. This is 7 over 1, which is 7. This is what Susan was asking. Now she's going to say y minus y equals m times x minus x. In answer to her question, it doesn't matter which point she uses now. Jillian could use this one. That would give you y minus -2, x minus 3. Maria could use this one. Y minus 5 and x minus 4. Well, it looks like your teacher should count off for one of those because those don't look the same, do they? Watch what happens if I get them in slope-intercept or standard form or I graph them, okay? Watch this. Can you see that yellow? Okay, that's good. If I say y plus 2 equals 7x minus 21, and then I subtract 2, I get y equals 7x minus 23. On this one, I have y minus 5 equals 7x minus 28. I'm going to add 5, and I get y is equal to 7x, a -28, and a +5 is -23. Do you see it did not matter which point I filled in? I get the same equation either way, okay? Susan?
So we just pick whichever points?
Yes. Yeah.
But like even if it doesn't coordinate with the line that we drew on the graph, don't we have to?
Well, we're not doing that on number 4. Number 4, they already gave us point slope form.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're gonna get to pick a point, Susan, pick one on the graph.
Okay.
You don't wanna pick one that's not on the graph, then you won't be doing the problem, okay? But that didn't come up on that problem because they already started us, we didn't need that. All right, number 5. All right, so number 5, they've started us with the far right box, 3x plus 2y equals 6. Kind of what Yana was asking me, the back and forth probably is good from the second to the fourth box. Like, I've got to get all of these things done, but I think I'm going to get it in slope-intercept form first. So I'm going to get it in y equals mx plus b. So right now I'm working on the second box. Here's number 5. And you're given this, 3x plus 2y equals 6. And I got to fill in all the other boxes, including the graph. Okay? So I'm going to subtract 3x. You've seen me do this a lot of times. I have 2y. Where do I want to put that x? Ella? In front of the 6. Next to the equals. Very good. Divide by 2. And so we get y is equal to negative 3/2 x plus 3. 6 over 2 is 3. Ooh, and now I can graph it pretty easily, right? Okay, so my y-intercept is 3. And then I'm going to go down 3 and over 2 and draw my line. And now this is where Susan's question comes in. Okay, great question. Now Susan and I have to write point slope form. We've got to go y minus y equals m times x minus x. We already know m, don't we? Okay. Now we've got to be convinced of a point on the line. Girls, I'm convinced of this point and this point, especially if you're drawing it on graph paper. You could pick another one that if you're sure it's on the line, but I would pick one I'm sure, okay? I think 0, 3. Do y'all see this point? I could use 0, 3. So I'm going to use that one. Y minus y, x minus x, and you can just leave it like that. But pick a point on the line and fill it in. That's point slope form.
We can just leave it. We don't have
Point
to-
slope form.
Oh my god.
Okay. All right, questions on number 5. Doing good. All right. And remember you have this sheet to practice probably with the answers on it. All right, number 6. All right, so on number 6, all right, so we have all of this on number 6. We don't have the graph. For some reason, I picked one that we had point slope form again. You could have any of them. I know he won't go away. Let's see. All right, so we have y plus 2 equals negative x plus 1. What's understood to be right there? Negative who? Negative 1. Okay, I think I'm going to go graph. Sarah, what's our point here?
For number 6, right?
For number 6,
Yeah,
what
so
point?
I got -1, negative.
Wouldn't it be, it would be negative 1, negative 2. Thank you. All right, because it's supposed to be y minus y equals m times x minus x. And so since it says plus, somebody must have said y minus negative 2. Change the signs when you're pulling it out. So we have negative 1, negative 2. And then our slope is negative 1. Isn't that down 1 over 1? So I'm going to go down 1 over 1 and draw my line. Okay, now I'm going to get it in slope-intercept form. We're going to do this box. So this gives me y plus 2 equals negative x, negative 1. Solve for y, subtract 2. So it gives me y equals negative x minus 3. Which, by the way, you can watch yourself as you're going. Right now, I just found the y-intercept is negative 3. I feel pretty good about my original graph. It should match everything. And then I'm going to go, Yana, from there to standard form, which a lot of people in their head would just go x plus y equals -3. I'm super okay with that, okay? But if you want to get it into that form, you would add x to the other side so that it's over there with the y. And then we didn't have to do anything to it, okay? Questions on 6? Donna?
So, how did you graph it before you did the slope intercept?
If I have y plus 2 equals -x plus 1, I know the point must have been -1,
Oh, okay.
-2. I saw the point. Like if it says, I don't want to do it on this slide, I'm going to do it on another slide. If it says y minus 3 equals 4 times x minus 2, that's the form. This is y minus y, x minus x. So if there's a plus sign there, your point had a negative in it. Sarah, I think you had your hand up.
I was just saying, is it okay if you wrote -1x instead of just -x? Is that fine?
Yes, on this one right here,
Yeah.
I probably prefer it. Yeah, that's fine. People don't do it a lot, but it's fine. You could do 1x plus 1y if it makes you feel better. Okay. Let me see if there was something. Oh, let's do one more of the kind of ugly ones where I showed you that nice method to get rid of it. So if you want to just watch me or maybe write it in this little space right here, we're not going to do like a full-on example, but suppose you're working and you've gotten something like y equals 7/3 x plus 1/5. And you're trying to get it in standard form with no fractions. Those fractions, you got to battle with them unless you get rid of them right away. What's your common denominator? 15. And it's an equation, it's balanced. And so if I put somebody that weighs 15 more pounds on this side, I have to put 15 more pounds on that side. And then that's going to be 15y. Be careful if you need to go off to the side. 7/3 times 15. How many times does 3 goes into 15? 5. So that's 35 plus 1/5 times 15. 5 goes into 15 3 times. This is 35x plus 3, and then you can rearrange it from there. It's just a nice skill to have all the way through high school. Are y'all cool enough? I'm really cold.
Yeah.
Does anybody know how to turn it off? I don't.
I can try.
Okay, thanks, Evelyn. I totally think that you can get it. All right, now let's move on. All right, so determine which point is a solution to the system of equations. So I have number 1. There's only one of these. 4x minus 3y equals 6. X plus 2y equals 7. All right, some of us have talked about this. Thanks, Evelyn. Talked about this recently. Raise your hand if you tell me the 3 things that can happen with a system of equations. First of all, tell me if you can tell me what I mean by system of equations. What's a system of equations? All right.
I think it's 2 equations that equal the same thing.
They may not equal the same thing, but I think I know what you mean.
The result.
You're looking for the result, where they intersect. Yeah, they share a point.
Yeah.
Okay. As time goes by, you might have 3 equations or 4 equations. They might even intersect at more than one point, and your job later on in the year will be to find 2 or 3 points. Why is she just saying 1 point, girls? These are lines. So all you're going to have, your system will only have 2 lines. And what's the most that 2 lines can intersect? Maybe. What could happen that's really weird? Rebecca?
Well, they could be the same line, so they could
Have
always,
how many solutions?
like, infinite.
Infinite, okay? So you could not realize at first that one line's just a multiple of the other, and they're the same line. That could have infinite Parallel lines, no solution. Intersecting lines, one solution, okay? All right, so notice this is a multiple choice. Hey girls, coming up soon in March is our exam, which I'll give you a big review sheet for.
Wait, the final?
Yes. Yeah, which I'll explain later, but I'm not going to explain it right now.
No,
Yeah,
the
well,
math final is before.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Wait, so then what do we do during everything else?
Hey girls, let's don't worry about that before test day. The reason that I was saying that is you're going to have a lot of multiple choice on your exam, okay? And you're also going to have a lot of multiple choice on all the standardized tests you take, ACTs and SATs. So I also want to talk about a good way to solve an equation if you have multiple choice. Notice I just said which point is the solution. Everybody pause. Please don't work the problem. I know that that's hard, and I love the fact that some of you are working ahead, but just wait, because I want to say something big here. You could go, well, what does she want me to solve it by? Apparently she doesn't care. You could solve it by graphing, elimination, or substitution, okay? Or I could just start filling in the points and see if they work. Do you see that would be a little bit smarter here? That's why I said stop. You can write now. I'm going to fill in the point and see if they work. What's 4 times 3 minus 3 times negative 2? I just filled in this point right here. That gives me 12 plus 6. Is that 6? So it's not this one. Okay, let's try the next one. 4 times 3 minus 3 times 2. All right, I'm going to put in 3 for x and 2 for y. That's 12 minus 6. What does that equal? 6. It might be this one, but it has to work in what equation? Both, thanks. So now let's fill it in here. X is 3 plus 2y is 2. I get 3 plus 4 equals 7. So it must be B. Y'all see what I mean? Then you're done. Make sure it works in both. Okay? All right, let's go to substitution. Notice on your worksheet that I started on your review sheet, I knew you'd want to go over substitution because it's the newest thing. And so I started the review sheet with that. Grazia?
I have a question just in general. If you have, for example, -4 over -2, is that, or actually no, if you have -3 over -2, is that positive 3 over 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, number 1. Girls, we are doing substitution. 2x plus 3y equals 13. X equals 2 plus 3y. Okay? Substitution means I'm going to take out a variable and put an expression instead of it. Okay? Yeah, I didn't even think I copied it down right. All right, so here's my equations. Please choose wisely. I shared with you that I had a student a few years ago that just would take the first one and solve it for y, which gives you horrible things like 13 halves and 13 thirds that I don't want. Okay? So Danielle, do you know what the best sub to do here is?
Plug in x equals 2
It's
plus 3y.
served up to her, right? It's just good to go. So you put it in the other equation. So Danielle is going to go 2x plus 3y equals 13. And what can Daniela put in for x? What does x equal?
2 plus 3.
All right, so we have x is equal to 2 plus 3y. X is equal to 2 plus 3y. So we can take out x and put in 2 plus 3y. All right, that gives me 4 plus 6y plus 3y equals 13. So I have 4 plus 9y equals 13. Subtract 4. You get 9y equals 9. Divide. And you get y equals 1. Some of you don't take that many steps and you do it a lot faster than that, and I'm okay with that. Okay? You don't have to show every step. I just do because I'm the teacher. Now I know y. Y is 1. How do I find x?
Plug it in.
Choose wisely. I can put y in right here, or I could put y into this one. Is the first one or the second one easiest to fill back into? Second one. If I fill it into the second one, it just says flat out, x is equal to 2 plus 3y. What is y? 1, and so you get x is 5. And move on with your test. But how can you go back and check your answer? It should work in both equations, right? Okay? Or if you know how to type it in your calculator, which is tedious, you could do that. But all right, number 2. This is number 2. If you have a question, write it down. I'll pause at the end of the page. Number 2 is y plus x equals 10, and 2x equals 4y minus 2. Really, I wouldn't argue with a couple of decisions here. People might make different decisions. I would probably tend to work with the second one because x is already by itself. But what do I need to do to it? Rebecca?
Oh, divide it.
Divide it by 2. However, it wouldn't be very hard to isolate one of those two things, okay? All right, but it already says x equals, so I'm going to divide by 2. Divide everything by 2. Divide by 2. That gives me x is equal to 2y minus 1.
Yes.
And then I fill that into the other equation. Y plus x equals 10. X is 2y minus 1. It's called substitution for a reason. All right, that gives me y plus 2y minus 1 equals 10. So I have 3y minus 1 equals 10.
Plus 1.
Add 1,
11.
and I get 3y equals 11.
11.
And so y is 11 divided by 3, which is not much fun, but it is. So let me start my point. Y is 11 over 3. Does it matter which one you fill it back into?
Not really.
Not really. You can do the top or this one, or let's fill it in here. X is equal to 2y minus 1. So you get 11 thirds. This is like 2 over 1. So I'm going to make this 22 thirds minus 3 thirds, and I get x is 19 thirds. That says 19 thirds, 11 thirds. Really ugly, but watch this. Fill it in here. What does this tell me to do? Add my x and y together? Girls, if you add 19 thirds and 11 thirds, you get 30 thirds, which is what? 10. So you probably feel pretty good about what you did, even though you haven't checked it in the second one yet. I'm going to number 3. Write your question down if you have one. All right, but I'm going to number 3. Write your question down if you have one. Number 3. Don't ask your neighbor. Write your question down if you have one. Number 3. 3x plus y equals 5. 2x minus y equals 5. Raise your hand if you know why I don't want to solve for x here. Look at it and decide, why do I not want to solve for x, Jillian?
Is it because the y's are already like isolated?
They're already by themselves. If I'd solve for x, Jillian and I would have to divide by 3 or 2. It doesn't matter which one you solve for. I'm going to do the top. So I'm taking the top equation. I'm going to move this one out of the way, or I'll just rewrite it because you've got it on your worksheet. Your job in substitution is to isolate one of the variables, get it on the side by itself completely, okay? So I'm working with 3x plus y equals 5. So I'm going to move the 3x over, which a lot of you could do in your head. Y equals negative 3x plus 5, and sub it into this equation. You have to be very careful. You know how I harp and harp and harp and gripe and gripe and gripe and say and say and say that you need parentheses when you fill in for a variable. When I fill into this one, I have 2x minus y equals 5. I bet you if you don't put that in parentheses, you're not going to distribute. I'm going to put y is negative 3x plus 5. So this gives me 2x minus a negative is plus 3x minus 5 equals 5. That gives me 5x equals 10. I just added those and put the 5 on the other side. So what is x? X is 2. And I have to go back somewhere and find y. I can put it right here. Y is negative 3x plus 5. I'm going to put in 2. Y equals negative 6 plus 5. Y is negative 1. So my point is 2, negative 1. And if you check it, it'll fill into both. All right, now questions on this page. All right, Maria?
I have a question. I figured it out like differently. Like I don't
Oh, there's other ways to work it, but you have to do substitution. So what did you do?
I said like I chose like 2x. Oh yeah, I chose 2x minus y. Never mind, I think I was done.
Are you sure?
Well, I think I got the right answer. I just think I messed up somewhere, but I still got the right answer.
But what did you do to start with?
I had like 2x equals negative 1 plus 5 and then 2x. Four, and then I don't know what I did. I think I got it wrong.
Do you know how to do substitution though?
Yeah.
You're okay? All right. Daniela?
For number 2 on this page, how did you get 3 over 3 from distributing 11 over 3?
Okay, right here, this 3 over 3?
Yeah.
All right, let's back up. Ella, this may be where your question is, so if I watch and see if I hit your question. So, Daniela, I had gotten to this point with my substitution and divided by 3, and I knew y was 11/3. I got to go back and fill it in anywhere I want to, and I chose this. So I'm going to say x is equal to 2y minus 1. This is like 2 over 1. So x is equal to 22/3 minus 1. What can you change 1 into? You need a common denominator. I can't subtract those two things. What's your common denominator here? Isn't this like 1 over 1? So I got a common denominator. I made that 3 over 3. Like I was getting a common denominator. They have to have a 3 on the bottom, so I have to have a 3 on the top. And that gave me 19/3 for my answer up here. You know, let's try this one, Daniela. What if I have 4/3 plus 1? How are you going to add that together? Suppose I ran into that.
Times 3.
So, well, if you're just trying to add two numbers, like I've got to get a common denominator to add two fractions. And so I'm going to multiply this one by 3, and I need to multiply the top by 3. Am I getting it for you? All right, Ella, did you still have a question on 2? You were dying for me to stop?
Sorry. I just couldn't see it. Yeah, I can't see it. I can't.
What color can you not see?
Blue.
Blue, okay.
It was just really small.
It's like blending
I
out.
won't do blue anymore. Is white good?
Yeah.
Okay. Ella, do I need to go back and rewrite it in white?
No, it's fine. I get it.
You okay?
I mean,
All right. Victoire?
Can we go back to number 3? When you distributed, why did you multiply? Oh.
It's like a -1.
Okay.
Okay, Yana?
Yeah, so for our final answer, we have to write out the full points, right?
Yes. That's what you're trying to do. All right, girls. Other question?
No, I'm just trying to see.
What would happen if you were doing substitution? Look right here, girls. what would happen if your x's like canceled each other out right there? They're not. I get 5x. But what if the x's just completely disappear? And you get some weird statement like negative 5 equals 5. What would that mean to you, Grazia?
That means that it's
No solution. That means this doesn't even have an x or a y. Like, what if you get something like 3 equals 3? What would that mean, Sarah? Infinite solutions. It means you didn't know it, but you were working with the exact same line. Okay? All right, now let's go to graphing. I'm going to go through graphing really fast. Oh, good news is for y'all is I've run out of pink slides, so I'll write in black and blue and everybody can see. All right, I'm not going to maybe touch on graphing right now. I may come back to it. I'll give you, yeah, let's do the first one. Number 4. So I have y equals 5. This is good to do now that I think about it. Y equals 5 minus 2x and 3x minus 2y equals 4.
Yes.
All right, most of you girls are gonna, I'll provide graph paper or a little graph on the test. You'll have you'll want that so you can count. Most of you are gonna want it y equals mx plus b form to graph. You could do other things if you know them, okay? Girls, how do I wanna write this first one? I don't want it to say 5 minus 2x. I mean, I think you could adapt, but wouldn't I rather it say negative 2x plus 5? Okay, what's my y-intercept? 5, and then I'm going to go down 2 and over 1. And you would have graph paper, and you definitely draw the straightest line you could. Now I'm going to want to get this one in y-intercept form. So I'm going to subtract 3x. That leaves me negative 2y. I'm going to scoot the 3x in next to the equals. Divide by negative 2. And I get y. Oh, look, Grazia, exactly what you asked. I have negative 3 over negative 2.
Yeah.
So that's 3 halves x, and that's a minus 2. My y-intercept is negative 2. And then I'm counting up 1, 2, 3, and over 2. Now with graph paper, it's going to be easier to see where they intersect. Right now, it looks like they intersect. If I did it halfway decent, it looks like it intersects at 2, 1. How can you check that? I'm going to fill it back in. What if I put in 2 for x right here? What's 5 minus 4? 1. And if I fill it into this one that you can't hardly read anymore, what's 3 times 2? 6. Minus 2 times 1. Do I get 4? It fills into both of them. I get the correct answer. Okay? Any questions on solve by graphing? Okay? You'll have graph paper. Okay?
I have a question, Mrs. Arian.
Huh?
I have a question.
Okay?
So, for number 4, you don't plug in y into the bottom problem?
No, because of that. So,
Oh, well, here, I see the whole entire point. Oh, solve by graphing, you want to graph both equations.
Oh, and then finally intersect.
There you go. Right.
Oh yeah.
Hey, girls, listen. If all of a sudden your lines look really weird, like parallel, and I got to say a lot of I got to say some really meaningful things, not interesting probably, meaningful things in the next couple of minutes. So if I don't get to your question, please let me know, okay? There's a few things I want to say. First of all, I will provide you I will work this out and scan it and send it to you, okay? Second, parallel lines have the same slope, perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slope. So if all of a sudden you're like, wait, my lines look parallel, you ought to be able to look at your slopes. That would be no solution, okay? And the other thing, before I do elimination, I'm going to do one of the elimination problems for you. I wanted today to do all of the substitution problems since that was new. You have that other sheet that you can practice. Please make an appointment or come by and catch me if you need to do more. Also, what is not on this sheet that you do need to know, I hadn't made out the test yet, but I might do this. What if you had this and you wanted to graph x equals 5? What does that look like, Grazia?
Well, it would go on through x. On the x-axis, it would go on 5.
All right, it would be vertical and those have no slope.
Yeah.
All right, y equals 2 in red. We'd go to the y-axis and go across. Horizontal lines have 0 slope. I wanted to say that today because those are so easy to graph. I don't want you to miss that. Okay, Grazia?
I have a question. Does no slope mean no solution?
No slope just means you're going to die.
But I thought that
Remember the line writers, like, it's undefined. Undefined.
but I thought that
You're not trying to find a solution if you're just graphing x equals 4. It's just a line, x equals 4. There's not like a solution to it.
But so I thought the slopes of vertical lines were no solution.
No slope. No
So-
slope or undefined. Those are interchangeable.
Okay.
Okay? All right, girls, real quickly. In fact, don't be late to class. I have 1:35 right now, and you're not allowed to be late to class. I'm going to work number 6 on elimination. But if you have a class next, do not be late. Is anybody staying? Can I keep on going?
I'm saying.
Okay. Hey, girls, know that as you're making it to class, it's at the very end of the video if all you need is elimination. And this is as hard as it can get. This number is as difficult as elimination can be. Only stay if you do not have a class. Hang on, I'm still working. The class is still here. Okay? Hey, girls. Please, I think you will all look and go. Don't talk if you're in here. Thank you. I think most of you would look and go, which one can I quickly eliminate? But you see why this one's harder? Very good, Margot. I've got to do both. Does anybody know why I'm going to get rid of the y's instead of the x's? They at least have different signs. Do y'all see that? What number can you get the y's to be? So I'm going to multiply the top by 5 and the bottom by 3. You'd write that down for me and go all the way across everything. 25x plus 15y equals 60. 12x minus 15y equals 51. And then you add. These cancel. That gives me 37x equals 111.
Thank you.
Divide by 37. Bye, Susan. Bye, Daniela. Remember this at the end of the video if you need it. That goes in 3 times evenly. X is 3. And how do you find y? You plug it in. So you have 5x plus 3y equals 12. I'm going to put in 3. 15 plus 3y equals 12. Subtract 15. And I get 3y equals negative 3. Y equals negative 1. And then you would write it as a point. And you can practice the other ones. I'll provide the answers or old worksheets. Okay? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the video. If you have other questions and you have time to ask them, you can do that real quickly. Yana,